Whisper Creek Studios.
Okay, welcome listeners, and this week on Roots and Shadows, the Real Appalachia Podcast, it's going to be a little different than what you're accustomed to. Instead of a story, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go back and review some things that we've talked about in previous episodes. Now, Roots and Shadows had to unexpectedly be on the road this week, so I'm recording this version on the road. So it may sound a little different, the audio may be a little different, but you may hear some noises you're not accustomed to, like rain hitting the windshield or wipers going back and forth or road noise, but that's okay. But I wanted to share some things with you with this special episode. Now, Roots and Shadows Season 1 is coming to a close. Now, we've got about 2 more episodes left in this season, but don't be alarmed. We're going to come back. We're just taking a break, and it's going to allow us some time to get some new content together and get some things together. So Season 1, where next week we're going to do folklore, and then we're going to finish up Season 1 with a really, really, really good true crime episode where I'm going to be actually going to have some first-hand knowledge from the actual account by the victim's sister is going to participate in that true crime episode. So I hope you're excited about hearing that, and we get to share this true crime story from that perspective. So anyway, so we're going to get started here on some things, and I'm going to talk to you about. Before we get into this episode, if you're drawn to true stories from Appalachia, the kind rooted in history, folklore, crime, and things that people don't always say out loud, then you're in the right place. This is Roots and Shadows, the Real Appalachia Podcast. We release new episodes every Saturday. And if you decide to stay, go ahead and press that follow button. That way these stories don't have to come looking for you. Now, if you're new here on Roots and Shadows and you're hearing this episode for the first time here, well, I encourage you to go back and listen to last week's episode on Tom Dula, or Tom Dooley, as we call him here in the Appalachian Mountains. So because I'm going to talk about an update to that, some things that I have learned since we published that episode from some local people there has shared with me that I did not know at the time that we published that. So you're going to want to hear that, and also we're going to go way back into the archives and go back to one of our folklore episodes about the white thing at the end of the Holler. I think that's episode maybe like 6, something around in there. But the title is The White Thing at the End of the Holler. And I'm going to give you something that's really you're going to enjoy. We're going to get into all that and talk about that and see what we can come up with. Okay, so in 2001 in Wilkes County, there was a highly publicized push to right a historical wrong in some people's eyes. So it blossomed into an international media sensation. So a publisher of the Wilkes County newspaper there in Wilkes County, North Carolina, and some other folks got together, and I think they included a law firm. They created this petition, and they went through some old documents, and they went through some things, so they kind of retried the case, I guess you would say, under current standards and laws, and they launched this petition to pardon Tom Dooley. That's what they want to do, to posthumously pardon him. So this little thing started out as a little small thing in Wilkes County, and it blossomed. The Associated Press caught on to it. So they took it and they ran with it, and they started publishing it and talking, and it became a worldwide headline that went all over the world. Live interviews happened. I mean, BBC in London came out. I mean, it was all over. And people were trying to understand all over the world why a small town in North Carolina was fighting for a man that was hanged in 1868. So you can see the allure to that, and you can see why people would would want to, be interested in that sort of thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what they did. So what they did was they got together with this group of people, and they were trying to come up with a way to petition to get the governor then of North Carolina to pardon Tom Dula, or as we know him, Tom Dooley. So, Tom Dooley was a charismatic Civil War veteran that was caught up in this toxic love triangle back in the 1860s. So I'm not going to tell you the story because you can go back an episode and hear the whole story about that. But many historians and many locals believe, after they've studied this, that Ann Melton may have been the one who had actually committed the murder out of jealousy, and that Tom stayed silent to protect her, or Ann was maybe, I don't know. There's just a lot of things that went into that, and so we go back to modern times here with the local newspaper creating this petition and getting behind it. So they send it to the then governor, Mike Easley, to see if he would posthumously pardon, Tom Dooley. So their argument was that the evidence used to hang Tom Dooley wouldn't even make it past a grand jury today. So think about that. So they were trying to say that the evidence that they had in this case, with the information that was available, a grand jury wouldn't have issued a true bill, wouldn't have issued any sort of thing. It wouldn't have went past that. So they argued that the prosecution relied heavily on conflicting gossip and testimony from a wild card witness, who they say really just was flipped to save her own skin, as they would say, turn state's evidence. But maybe, so they thought maybe her testimony wasn't accurate. So the petition became an international news story and was covered all over the world. A lot of locals held out hope that the state would finally clear, as they said, poor Tom's name. So, but the legal system rarely will look backwards, is what they learned. Governor Easley ultimately didn't act on the pardon, leaving the 1868 murder conviction standing. So, as far as it was concerned, in the state's eyes, and a pardon, that came to an end there, with the governor not making any action on it. But hold on. We're not done just yet, because here is where the story gets incredibly Appalachian. The people of Wilkes County weren't just going to sit back and let Raleigh have the final say, the last word over poor Tom. So when it became clear that the governor of North Carolina wasn't going to officially sign off on clearing Tom Dooley's name, the community said, well, fine, we'll just do it ourselves. So the local citizens passed around a grassroots petition that swept through the county and made its way right into the county seat. Through a symbolic, localized resolution, the citizens of Wilkes County ceremonially acquitted Tom Dooley of all charges. Now, legally speaking, it has absolutely zero weight. The state of North Carolina still recognizes him as a convicted murderer. But culturally, well, it's the very valley where Laura Foster was found and Tom Dooley was arrested. The locals took the law in their own hands one last time to officially clear his name. It shows you how deeply involved and how deeply entrenched this 150-year-old mystery is to the bloodlines of Wilkes County. Okay, now moving on here to something else I wanted to share with you, and that was from the theme at the end of the Holler. Now, I had my producer go back and check while we were off the air there for a second and confirm that it was episode 12 was that episode. I had my times way off on that. So if you want to go back and listen to episode 12 before I get into this, you may want to do that because I don't want to spoil some things for you. So after the Facebook Reels and TikTok Reels and videos went out pertaining to this episode, I received a message from someone who said, hey, if you're talking about such and such house and such holler, he's like, I have something I might want to share with you. And at first I thought we were talking about the wrong place. And then he was calling that holler one name and I knew it as another. Well, come find out we just had our names wrong. And he was indeed talking about the same house and the same holler. And once we established that, he said, well, I want to share some things with you that went on in that house, and some things that I know that was shared with me from my family. So what he shared with me, well, I figured I need to pass it along to you guys. So he told me that not himself, because he was, hadn't been born yet, but his parents had lived in that house at one time, along with his sister and his aunt and uncle. They, at some point in time, through different times, they had all lived in that house. And according to them, which they relayed to him, some things went on in that house and in that holler, well, they could not explain. So you can see why I was intrigued now when we figured that we're talking about the same house. So one of the first things he said was that when they were in that house, that his family started hearing a baby crying. Well, the funny thing about it is, none of them had a baby. And they said they would hear this many times, and it wasn't just on one occasion. And it was pretty obvious, it wasn't just, was that a baby or not? But no, so apparently this happened. So it was the unmistakable cries of an infant echoing throughout the rooms. So they would search the house, I guess, to think, well, did somebody drop a baby off here? Is there a baby here? Well, of course, they would find no baby. Now, if that's not strange enough, well, it gets even stranger than that. So he said that they would be just sitting in the living room, and they would hear like glass break or something fall off the wall. Well, if you're from Appalachia, if you hear something fall in your house, well, you're supposed to go look for it. Because if you don't, well, they say bad luck will come to your house. So what do when they hear this glass breaking, they hear something falling? They go look. Well, to their surprise, they couldn't find anything. And this happened on multiple occasions. So, all right, now at this point in time, Kevin would have left the house. I wouldn't have stayed there, right? So the rest of this stuff I'm going to share with you would have never have happened to me, because I would have probably gotten out of there. I don't know about you. But anyhow, so you hear this, you hear the baby crying, you hear this stuff breaking, and then this loud crashes and stuff. One time he said they heard something like hit the back of the house and like shake the whole house, like a boulder or something had shook the house. And of course they run outside, and there was nothing there. I mean, obviously, if you heard something that loud, and it kind of goes back, if you listen to the start of that episode, how those two men that were talking about how they saw this white thing rolling in and it went into the house, kind of puts it in mind of that. So that happened. And then other things happened, like they would hear people walking. I say people, they would hear footsteps walking on the roof of their house. Now, I know that sounds strange, but it was not like a raccoon or a squirrel, and not like the sounds of the house settling, but what they believed, like someone was walking on the roof of their house. And if you've ever been in your house and somebody's been on your roof, the distinct sound it makes. Well, that's what it sounded like. Of course, they would go outside thinking somebody's on their house, maybe playing a trick on them, or, doing something. And well, once again, they would look, and they would be nobody there. So you got all this stuff going on. So, and then there was one incident that he said really, really got him all. He said that while his father was putting wood, they had a wood stove in the house, so his father was putting wood in the stove to keep the house warm. I imagine this was in wintertime, I guess. So that he was putting wood in there, and he said what looked like came out of the stove, really far out of the stove, not like just a pop or a crack or sometimes out of flames, that this fire came out of the stove, I imagine several feet. And he described it looked like a tongue of fire. So it shoots out, and it kind of wraps around the arm of his dad and burns him really severely. So, whatever happened there, I don't know, but that's something that stayed with the family. But perhaps the most unsettling part of the story of what he shared with me is that, according to him, his aunt claimed that she actually saw what she believed to be a demon inside that house. Now, mind you, this is the same house that we're talking about from the thing at the end of the holler. But he didn't go into every detail about that or where it was, what was going on with it. But he said his aunt began praying immediately, prayed the demon away is how he described it. He ended the message by saying, these things really happened and were witnessed by my family, and I wanted you to know. And something that's really interesting about this is, well, what makes it even more special is he shared with me this information before the episode was ever published. Thank you for listening to Roots and Shadows, the Real Appalachia Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider following the podcast and leaving a review. It really does help others discover these Appalachian stories. Until next time, I'm Kevin Austin, and remember, every root tells a story, and every shadow hides one. As a reminder, these stories are drawn from public records, historical reporting, and conversations passed down through families, neighbors, and memories. Some names have been changed, and where the written record goes quiet, details have been carefully dramatized for storytelling.